It gave it an economic base that no other province in the country possessed.
What is it about Alberta that sets it apart from the rest of the country? And who were the people who helped make Alberta what it is today?
They were innovators, they really were.
I'm Jillian Code. Thank you for joining us as we take a look into Alberta's history books and pinpoint why it seems the province is continually at odds with the federal government. It's often said that to understand the present, you need to look to the past, the people who came here and the ideas they came with. We'll speak with a descendant of settlers who helped to transform the province, a historian who shares some of the reasons Alberta is as unique as it is today, and a fourth-generation politician who says his values and his family's legacy are rooted in Western Canada. But we begin our journey south of the border, where many Albertans can trace their roots, and in some cases, the connections remain strong.
Alberta probably had a higher proportion of its population in the early part of the 20th century who had come directly from the United States than any other part of the country. One MP once stated that from Edmonton pretty much south to the border that Alberta was like an American state.
Americans coming in part due to the Last Best West campaign, created by then Minister of the Interior Clifford Sifton to push immigration into Western Canada. He wanted farmers, thinking they would be the ones most likely to succeed in Western Canada. He was right. In fact, a group fleeing religious persecution in the States had already begun to leave their mark on southern Alberta.
I think without the early pioneers from our church, it may have taken a lot longer to realize the potential of southern Alberta.
Nestled in the small town of Cardston, 25 kilometers north of the American border and just south of the Kainai Nation's blood reserve, is an architectural feat you wouldn't expect to find in a farming community. Built by Latter-day Saint settlers who had fled the States coming to Canada seeking refuge, the Cardston Temple was the first of its kind outside of the United States.
In 1886, Charles Oricard, who was the stake president, which is the ecclesiastical leader in Cache Valley, Utah, which is where present-day Logan, Utah is, he was going to leave, and he was going to go to Mexico. And he went, and before he left, because he was a church leader, he thought he would discuss his options with the church president, John Taylor. He told Charles Oricard, he said, "No, don't go to Mexico. I feel impressed to tell you to go to the British Northwest Territories. I have always found justice under the British flag." And so Charles Oricard followed that advice, and instead of going to Mexico with his family, he came to southern Alberta. The government in Canada, they didn't want to do any special favors for them because our church wasn't very popular at that time, but the government also knew that they really needed a people like us who could settle this area.
At this time, members of the Blood tribe were looking to expand into modern farming, as their traditional way of life was upended by declining buffalo herds, a rise in disease, and the impacts of colonialism. But the federal government turned its attention to the new white arrivals with homesteading experience. In Utah, Latter-day Saints had already developed irrigation for farmland and had built portions of rail lines, skills and experience that the Canadian government desperately needed.
Every time they built a railway, they were given a land grant, right? And so they later built a railway from Lethbridge to Great Falls. They built the Canadian part of that railway. And then later they built other railways, and then they widened them from narrow gauge to standard railways. And every time they did something with a railway, they got more land. So in the end, they ended up with over 1.5 million acres of land. Well, except their land was almost useless because nobody lived here, and people believed that you couldn't farm in this kind of climate, except for Charles Oricard and his associates who were settled in Cardston. They're like, you can, this could be awesome. All this water going down the rivers is going to waste, but it could be used, it could be brought out onto these lands, and they could be incredibly fertile farmlands. So they started talking from basically day one about what if we could one day build a large-scale irrigation project and we could open up this whole country.
They weren't the only ones who saw the potential southern Alberta had. Two area businessmen, Charles A. McGrath and Elliot Galt, also saw the vision and had the investment to begin a massive transformation.
Our church entered into a contract with them to bring people up to Canada to dig the irrigation canals. And of course, our people had experience with this kind of thing because we had irrigation in Utah. They had the skills to build irrigation canals.
Why did they decide to stay in southern Alberta? What kept them here?
Right, well, some didn't stay. You should know that. Some of them did go back. It was a little easier to live in Utah for some people, but you know, this was a land of opportunity too. If you were rugged enough that you could handle the weather and pioneering conditions, there were opportunities here. There's land, and really, like, once you learn to grow the right crops, so you could be successful. And I think it's just the freedom and opportunity and refuge that Canada offered.
The United States had created laws prohibiting polygamy, leaving church members with a threat of imprisonment. For some of those first settlers, Canada was an opportunity for more freedom.
The big thing about Canada was the law came before the people. So when people came west in Canada, it was orderly, right? And they knew what to expect. They knew what the rules would be. And that made it predictable, right? So that people could come and know what they were allowed to do, what they weren't allowed to do, and live within the rules. In the United States, our people came west, and it was beyond the boundaries of the United States, but then the United States expanded and over time imposed laws that in some cases were difficult for our members who already had a way of living. So it was easier in Canada to come where you knew the rules ahead of time.
Jewish, Mennonite, and Black American immigrants also saw Canada as a safe place to settle. They also started arriving towards the end of the 19th century, seeking freedom and the opportunity for a fresh start.
Government officials were very fair to members of our church right from the beginning. And I think for members of our faith, it was really important to know that Canada was a place of refuge and a place where we could practice our faith and not be persecuted and not be hampered, but just be allowed to live our religion and just be allowed to prosper.
The contributions of the Latter-day Saint settlers helped ensure that southern Alberta could thrive. Coming up, how Alberta's prosperity and disdain towards the feds helped create a political landscape not seen anywhere else.
Western alienation, the sense that we're not treated fairly. That is a recurring theme in Alberta.
Mark! Dad, let's go to home.
It's me. Lose yourself in the melt with a BK Whopper Melt.
Recently, we all got WeatherTech desk phones, and I have to say, productivity has definitely increased.
It's really efficient to access your phone hands-free.
And extra handy with the two-way view.
However, we do discover some added benefits.
It takes awesome selfies.
I like to call it the selfie savior.
Okay, back to work.
Don't forget the cup phone for your car.
Order your cup phone or desk phone today at weathertech.ca.
Make room for variety. Say goodbye to tired, uninspired recipes. Say hello to new meal ideas that everyone will love. HelloFresh, refresh your recipe routine.
It's such a pretty world today. Look at the sunshine. Look at the sunshine.
Book in the Hotels.com app to find your perfect somewhere.
Vegan Cream Color One Push comes with an innovative hair color dispenser. Just one push, then apply and comb through. 10 minutes later, rinse it off. It's quick, it's easy, it's permanent. Great for touch-ups or a complete color change. Save the unused portion for future use. With built-in natural extract oil, hair feels silky and light. Easy to style. Choose from 8 colors. Vegan Cream Color One Push. Great color, simply one push away.
I'm so excited, and I just can't hide it. Oh, I'm about to lose control, and I think I like it.
Winners, find fabulous for less.
Is Astro really 100% natural? Canadian milk, cream, and cultures. Just 3 simple ingredients.
Astra Original. Simple and 100% natural. Seriously.
Shake it up, change it up, switch it up.
Canadian, Ultra, Excel, Molson, everyone in.
There are still several issues in which there is some distance between the federal and provincial governments, such as the impact of the federal carbon tax.
You don't have to go far in Alberta to find disdain for the federal government.
I hope our new government can begin our relations with the current federal government in a diplomatic way, but ultimately we are prepared to use every tool in the legal and political toolbox to defend our vital economic interests.
Where did it begin? Is it possible that being frustrated with a federal government is woven into the fabric of Alberta? Some might say that answer is yes, that fighting the feds is as Albertan as it gets.
The split between Alberta and Saskatchewan was not something that was decided by local politicians. It was imposed by Ottawa. The fact that Alberta and Saskatchewan were not going to be given control over their natural resources was imposed by Ottawa, and both of those things could play into developing unhappiness. There's some discussion that they didn't want to see a province that would be too big and too powerful. The first governments after Alberta and Saskatchewan became provinces were appointed by the lieutenant governors, who were appointed by the Liberal government of the day. So Liberal governments were put in power, Liberal-leaning governments. One of the other reasons why Alberta was able to move quickly out of the traditional political competition is that it was imposed on Alberta rather than developing sort of from the grassroots. So the Liberals and Conservatives were the imposition of federal divisions onto Alberta politics, and it might have been part of the reason why why a Conservative Party was not able to replace the Liberals in 1921. It was a UFA.
Because they needed a grassroots.
It was grassroots, and it was very much provincially focused. Alberta was able to remain distinctive for so long because the governing party, particularly the Progressive Conservatives, seemed to be running not against provincial parties. They almost kind of ignored them and said that their opponent was the federal government. And are you going to stand up for Alberta, or are you not going to be for Alberta? So it was very much a provincial rights and anti-federal government position, and that position's a little tougher to take if you might be getting equalization payments from time to time.
Equalization is a topic of contention for some Alberta politicians. It's been nearly 60 years since Alberta was on the receiving end of the program that evens out fiscal disparities between provinces. Equalization payments were part of former Alberta Premier Jason Kenney's Fair Deal panel, a government report evaluating Alberta's place in Confederation.
The report and recommendations of the Fair Deal panel are not a cry for help. They're a demand for fairness.
Equalization payments were on the ballot in a provincial referendum in 2021, which saw more than 60% of voters support removing it from the Constitution. But Stewart says Alberta's stance isn't as strong outside of the province.
I think that the rest of the country may feel a little more frustrated with Alberta than we feel about ourselves. I mean, if you're looking from the outside, it may be a little more difficult to see Albertans as being hard done by when we have the lowest taxes in the country. We have one of the most vibrant economies, and we're sitting on top of all these lucrative natural resources, and yet we're still complaining and unhappy with our lot in the Federation.
What allowed Alberta to move forward and become a Western powerhouse compared to the other provinces?
Well, the discovery of oil really moved Alberta forward. It gave it an economic base that no other province in the country possessed. Alberta went from a province that was having some difficulty balancing its budgets to becoming a province that didn't really have to worry to the same degree about funding as other provinces did. I mean, that really started the point at which Alberta was distinctive from other provinces in that so much of its revenue was coming from oil and eventually natural gas.
When you define who Albertans are in a political sense, what makes Alberta different than, you know, the other provinces out east, even down to the States? What sets Alberta apart?
Well, I'd say there are two things. One is the prosperity that the oil and natural gas have brought to us, which gives us, I think, a lot of optimism about the future. And the second is Western alienation, the sense that we're not treated fairly. That is a recurring theme in Alberta.
A recurring theme that is top of mind for Alberta Premier Danielle Smith.
It's, I think, perhaps even more strongly present today, and you can see the sorts of things that Premier Smith is talking about, like an Alberta pension plan, like an Alberta provincial police, like the federal government not being supportive enough of Alberta's control over natural resources.
Back-to-back premiers have made fighting the feds one of their key battles, and for Albertans, anti-government freedom protests that sprung up in 2020 were well attended and have continued to draw support.
I think we expect the federal government to listen and pay attention to us in a way that may not have been the case early on. It was sort of maybe a resigned alienation at the beginning. Now it's an aggressive alienation.
What's going to happen in the next couple election cycles, the next couple decades down the road?
Well, it looks like from the federal polls that the Conservatives will be elected. That has traditionally created problems for the Conservative parties in Alberta, because it's harder for them to run against the federal government when it's a federal government of exactly the same stripe. So that kind of forces elections in Alberta to be more on, if you will, domestic issues, and that could create an opportunity for the NDP.
As Alberta evolves, so do the elections and the ideas of those voted into office. Coming up, why Alberta's Minister of Finance says he has a different perspective than most.
We're still engaged in that debate and sometimes fight, but yeah, I think it's worth it.
This is the moment. I feel like the main character in my own love story.
The Bachelorette season premiere, Monday, 8/7 Central on City TV.
Love boneless wings? Popeyes is just what you're craving. New Popeyes boneless wings are tender, juicy, and made with all white meat. You're gonna love that bold flavor. No bones about it.
Love that chicken from Popeyes.
Here's to your next adventure. Whether it's market strolls or dancing in the streets, we're right there with you, wherever your sights are set. That's the powerful backing of American Express.
Okay, is that the DQ sauced and tossed honey barbecue chicken strip basket? With sauced and tossed seasoned chicken strips and fries and dipping sauce? And it's only a DQ. DQ, happy tastes good.
Frizz, dryness, breakage. New Dove 10-in-1 Serum Hair Mask with patented peptide complex fortifies hair bonds. Helps reverse 10 visible signs of damage in 1 minute. Keep living. We'll keep repairing.
A world of flavor, born of simple ingredients.
With the fine-tuned nutrition in ProPlan Sport at PetSmart, your active dog will be ready for a lifetime of adventures. And right now at PetSmart, save $10 on select Purina ProPlan dog and cat food. PetSmart, anything for pets.
Summer of Dash Pass is here. Get more to your door for less. Groceries, self-care, restaurants, and snacks. Subscribe to save up to 50% off your order. Plus no delivery fees with Dash Pass from DoorDash. Start your 30-day free trial now.
Nutty and sweet latte macchiato. This one's for the prize?
Intenso.
No. Cool. Definitely iced. Sweet. Bye!
espresso. What else?
Twisted Tea fans love summer and the smooth, refreshing taste of Twisted Tea Hard Iced Tea. Made with real brewed tea and just the right kick of lemon flavor. But don't take our word for it. Ask our fans. Twisted Tea! Twisted Tea. Good times with a twist.
You asked and we listened. Tim's Retro Donuts are back again for a really limited time. Enjoy classics like Walnut Crunch and Dutchie. And now including Sugar Twist and Blueberry Sour Cream. Get them before they're gone.
It's time for Tim's.
I'm ready for all competitors. Welcome to the world that you deserve to be in.
Double down, then I level up.
This is the best I've ever seen.
My favorite act so far.
You're dead, it's time to settle up.
I want to see more.
You absolutely nailed it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Whoa! It was incredible.
The word is epic.
You've got a real shot at winning after that.
America's Got Talent. All new Tuesdays, 8, 7 Central on City TV.
Alberta has evolved over the years, the people, the policies, and the politicians. But there are some who say they try to uphold the values of those who came and settled in Western Canada. Perhaps no one more than Alberta's Minister of Finance, Nate Horner. He was born and raised in rural Alberta, and his grandfather, uncles, and cousins have long represented the Horner name in provincial and federal politics. While Nate Horner is a fourth-generation politician, he says he sees his role as anything but.
I hate that term. I always consider myself a representative. Politician, it can have such a negative connotation, but I guess that's what I am. I would say I have the utmost respect for those that came before me, and I now more than ever appreciate their commitment, and I appreciate it more now than I ever could have before. I'm very proud of what they've done, and yeah, I hope to continue down that path and do a good job for all Albertans. When my great uncle Hugh, he served a term in Ottawa with my grandfather, and then he came back to Alberta to kind of be Lougheed's rural lieutenant, you'd call him, and was deputy premier and ag minister and transportation minister. So I think we've always kind of represented rural Alberta, but Hugh was very quick to make sure everyone knew that rural Alberta was just as sophisticated and had the same, wants and needs as urban Alberta. So I think he did a lot to bridge that gap. Doug served a lot of different portfolios, also finance, advanced education, I think served him well. I guess if anything makes me different is that I'm very much remote rural Alberta. They're from Barrhead. I'm from 200 kilometers east of McKnight Boulevard in the middle of nowhere. And yeah, it's a different perspective than I'd say almost anyone in the legislature.
And so in your maiden speech in the legislature, you said you do not have to be a lawyer to be a member of this great assembly. So as a rancher, what does that bring to the table?
Well, I think although you're there to create law, and there's always enough lawyers, I would say, that find their way to that place, I think some of the best representatives and politicians I've seen are just people that have great real life experience, that have had some success and some failure, learn from it, have the respect to their community, and that's something that's very much different, I think, in campaigning and getting elected in rural Alberta. It's a lot more personal. You know your neighbors, they know where you're from, you don't parachute in candidates. I think that is different. The advice I got from people like Doug Horner was just, if you're in, you have to be in all the way. My grandmother, she's still alive, Leola Horner. She'll be 99 in October. And I know she told me, really think about this when I told her that I was going to run, just because that they know the cost on family, and it's different now than it was then, obviously, with social media and just how personal I'd say some of it's become. That still existed, I think, when my grandfather was in politics, but they'd have to mail you the letter, I guess. It took a little more commitment.
How do you think your great-grandfather would react to the way Western Canada is now?
Oh, that's an interesting question. So much has changed. Like, you know, a lot of their challenges were similar but different, like an evolving world. Technology was changing their world in a very basic way, like, you know, automobiles and the like, and now it's moving so fast. But I think they'd be pretty impressed with the growth in Western Canada. The population numbers we're seeing currently, I don't think they could have ever imagined. You know, we're seeing growth today that we haven't seen since we were giving quarter sections of land away to populate the West. So I hope they would see it as, you know, that we've managed to keep it a place of opportunity. There's not that you know, basic opportunity where you're getting off the train and you know, they're giving away quarters of land to try and inspire that pioneers to populate the place. But I'd say still through policy, we're trying to keep it the land of opportunity.
What is the legacy that you think your family has left on politics, not just in Western Canada, but at a federal level as well?
I hope just that we were committed people that, you know, that tried our best and felt like it was worth the effort, you know. I have a provincial perspective, but that Canada was, you know, worth the effort. We're such a unique country and so different, and rarely do our, you know, needs and wants align from east to west. But it's a conversation and sometimes a fight worth having. But I think they always, you know, believed in the country and believed in the West, and we're still engaged in that debate and sometimes fight. But yeah, I think it's worth it.
Party time!
Unlock your engine's true performance with new and improved Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Performance unbound.
When you're hurt in an auto accident that wasn't your fault, you need someone on your side. Call Presler Injury Lawyers. We've recovered millions of dollars for our clients, and we can help you too. After an accident, call 1-800-JUSTICE.
Savor the beauty of Canada with Nutella.
When arthritis pain makes the stairs feel like a summit, there's Tylenol Arthritis. With 2 layers of pain relief. One acts fast, one lasts for up to 8 hours, and it's gentle on your stomach. Tylenol Arthritis, made for everyday moments.
It's time to spruce up your yard with help from Home Hardware's Backyard Savings Sale.
Save 10% on TimberTech composite deck boards and up to 25% on select Benchmark outdoor tools. Only at Home Hardware and Building Centers. Here's how.
Thousands of Canadians like Glenn test our products for quality over and over and over again. So you know they're built to last. Only the best earn the badge.
I'm meeting my girlfriend's dad.
Go with this one. It's AAA, well marbled, and extra tender.
A little extra advice can mean a lot. Save on foods.
Introducing TSC Days. 2 days of all-out savings with up to 60% off and an epic assortment. From savings on wishlist-worthy tech to kitchenware everyone's craving. Refresh your beauty and your home with amazing offers. Plus, split your purchases into 12 interest-free easy pay payments. It's one of our biggest sales of the year, and it's on for 2 days only. TSC Days kicks off on July 8th at 10 p.m. at tsc.ca. Exciting offers every day.
That's it for this edition of City News Connect on Alberta's political history. I'm Jillian Code. Thank you for joining us.